It's the third week of 1942, and now the instructions are clear. Americans are being told where to go, what to bring, and what they'll need to do. Rationing hasn't started yet, but now it feels real. Hello to all the Rosies and Homefront Joes, and welcome back to On the Victory Homefront. Last time we stepped into mid-April when Americans were just beginning to hear that rationing was coming. But by the third week of April 1942, something changes. This is when rationing stops being an idea and starts becoming a process. By this point, Americans aren't just being told that rationing is coming, they're being told what to do about it. Instructions are becoming clearer, messaging is more specific, and for the first time, people understand that they are going to have to participate in something organized, something structured, something new. Across the country, people are being told what they will need to register. They're told to go to local schools. They're told that every member of the household will need to be accounted for. And importantly, they're told that they will need to declare how much sugar they already have at home. This isn't something you figure out when you arrive. This is something you have to prepare for. And that changes things because now preparation moves inside the home. This is probably the week when families start opening cupboards, not casually, but intentionally. How much sugar do we have? Where is it stored? How long will it last us? How quickly do we go through it? These aren't questions people are used to asking, but now they matter. This is the week when people stop thinking in general terms and start thinking in specifics. And that idea of taking inventory, of actually knowing what you have, that's something that I've been experiencing myself here on my Victory Homefront as I've been trying to adopt more of the 1940s Homefront mindset. I've actually found myself paying a lot more attention to what we actually have here at home, how much we use, how much we need, and how long things last. And that started to directly affect how I approach my victory garden, because it's not just about planning what sounds good, it's about figuring out what actually makes sense, what will support my family, and how much of it I need to grow. I've had to really break that down. What do we actually eat? What do we go through the most? And what's worth the effort to grow in a meaningful way? And so on the home front, it's not about preference anymore, it's about planning. And that's exactly the kind of shift Americans were beginning to make in the third week of April 1942. Not because anything had been taken away yet, but because they knew it was coming. Now, you might imagine that this is the moment when people rush out to buy as much sugar as they can. And, maybe some did. But for most families, that's not what happened, because they already knew they were going to have to declare what they already have. And so stockpiling felt unnecessary, and it could actually work against them. But more importantly, there is that growing sense that this isn't just about them, it's about everyone. And so instead of panic, what you see is adjustment. And it's not just families who are preparing, stores are too. Because they're about to become the place where all of this actually plays out. By the third week of April, store owners are being told that things are about to change. That soon it won't just be money exchanged for goods, it will be money and ration stamps. And they're already starting to see the signs because supplies have been tightening. Certain items have been harder to get, which means they're not just preparing for new rules. They're preparing for less to sell. And that puts them in a difficult position because very soon they'll be the ones standing across the counter from customers explaining why they can't buy what they want. For the first time, the store isn't just a place to shop. It becomes a place where limits are enforced. And I want to pause here for a moment because the idea of rationing, especially today, can be viewed in very different ways. In some modern conversations, I have seen rationing described as a way to control people. And this idea that if you control resources, you control the population. Now, there is very much truth to that. And in certain parts of the world during wartime Europe and World War II, where access to food and resources was sometimes used as a tool of control, that is true. But that's not what was happening here in the United States. Rationing in America was designed around a different goal. It was making sure that everyone had access to what they needed, even as supplies became limited. It wasn't about taking things away. It was about making sure they were fairly distributed. Imagine that during the big toilet paper fiasco. If we were told we could only get certain amounts, everybody would have had some, and there wouldn't have been those empty shelves that we were experiencing. It's really easy to take a system like the World War II ration program and to twist it into controlling the masses. But that is not what happened here in the U.S. in 1942 through 1945. There was a strong sense of shared responsibility. This idea that if everyone took only their share, then everyone would have enough. It was not about control. It was about cooperation. And again, this doesn't mean that systems like this can't be misused or that they would always work perfectly. Any system can be used in different ways. But in the context of World War II America, rationing was largely understood and accepted as part of a collective effort. It was an all for one and one for all kind of mindset. And it was to ensure that everybody had enough. So back to the third week of 1942. This is when preparation becomes personal. It's when the war reaches into everyday life, not through restrictions yet, but through expectations. Because next week, Americans won't just be preparing, they'll be lining up, they'll be registering, and they'll be stepping directly into a system that will shape what they can and cannot buy. It's not rationing yet, but it's no longer distant. It's scheduled, it's organized, and it's about to begin. So before we wrap up this really quick episode of week 3 in 1942, I just want to let everybody know that I will be a guest on the Donut Dollies podcast on May 6th, and I will be talking about what got me started with trying to live like the World War II years and my 1940s obsession, and why things like victory gardens and skills of the 1940s still matter. So be sure to tune in for that. I want to thank you all for listening and for tuning in. Be sure to join me next week as we dive into the registration process for book 1 of the rationing program. And please be sure to share my podcast with your friends and family who you think would be interested. Help me grow my audience. I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, my friends, remember, victory is in the everyday. See you next time on the Victory Homefront.